Next question from Drew Brennan. What gives you confidence that Marcus Freeman can hopefully reverse the sluggish road outings we have seen in the past from the Irish? Does Mike Denbrock help alleviate your worries around all this?
Man, I got to tell you, I'm sick of the road questions. No offense, Drew, but like I just kind of feel like that became like the whole thing, and like it was like they just stunk on the road, and I mean they weren't better on the road, but I think there was like the factors that went into it were a lot of it had to do with they're playing teams that had guys up front that were way better than their guards. That's just what it was. So like, and then also too like because if we talk about like the sluggish starts, right? So think about the Duke game and you can look at early on in the game too, right? Like those the interior of the line did not play well. Like they got their butts kicked. So that was one thing. Also too, they had three healthy receivers, and one was a guy who like barely played the rest of the year in Tobias Merriweather, really, right? So like he basically like lost his job by playing 70 plays in that game. So there's that. Louisville kicked their butts up front, and when they played that Louisville game, were like switching in Shrouth in that game because they were like not happy with the guards. So like that's kind of where they were at in that game. And then I mean, same thing in Clemson. The guards and Zeke Correll got their butt kicked. And even go back to like Louisville, if you look at like the offense in or the things that went wrong in the Clemson game, I mean, I could pick out I whatever. I don't want to pick on one guy, but there was one guy. If he made like two tackles, it's like all of a sudden it's like, wow, they really started pretty good on defense. Like that was
DJ Brown had a bad game. But
yes,
we just say he had a bad game.
Bad.
He did not play well in that one.
Yeah, but I just feel like whatever. It's like because he's gone and we're just piling on. So I don't really want to just like and everybody remembers the Ohio State game, and I don't want to keep piling on the guy like whatever. But I mean, it's true. He was really, and I mean, you can go to the Louisville game. It's like he's got Jawar Jordan in the hole.
Yeah,
and he just misses that tackle, and it's a house call. Like, and then plus the Louisville game, it's like a bad ball by Hartman on the very first drive, like throws the pick and stuff. It's like, I mean, I don't know if that's got to do with them not being ready in the game. It's a bad play by Hartman, who's like having flashbacks of the last time he stunk at Louisville, right? So like, I don't know. I'm not saying that they shouldn't. If you're looking at that and you don't play well on the road, you should look at solutions. But I think a lot of it was personnel driven.
Yeah, like circumstance too. Like you're playing better. It happened that they were playing the better teams and the better defenses. I think the question is not necessarily about the road because last offseason we got a ton of how many that you just replaced the red zone defense with.
Yes, this is this year's red zone defense.
So I guess the question is like, is there going to be another fatal flaw on this particular team? Right, the 22 team. It was it was a lot of things, but like there was one really bad, and then they were literally, like you say, they were literally the worst in the nation in red zone defense. Literally the worst. They were a very bad road team, right, and that turned out to be a fatal flaw for that last year's team. Is there going to be one this year? And like, I mean, we never would have picked out the road stuff, and we never would have picked out the road or the red zone stuff. So I guess I was going to ask, like, if you could pick one, but like, it's usually something you would never pick. And that's why like, it's hard to do that. But just like, that's the thing is, can they avoid that kind of fatal flaw within the team? And I think that's kind of what the spirit of the question is. And it's just like, he's asking it, but because of the road stuff, because that was the issue last year. But like,
no, whatever. Like, I'm not even just saying because everybody, I know this is like it's on the mind of whatever, and I don't mean shots at you at all. I'm just saying like, it's like this thing. It's like it's not like, man, they gotta change the they gotta fly earlier or they gotta do that. It's like not like
better
if it was
speeches or better whatever.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's one of these things where it's like, guys, we got to get up on the road here. We're not excited enough. Everybody thinks that, and I like whatever. I don't want to point out, but there was someone who like just commented on a column I wrote last week or 2 weeks ago or something like that, who was like, you're always stouting the stats, but you never talk about heart or whatever. And I'm like, well, I mean, I'm sorry, like everybody wants it. You know what I mean? Like, some guys don't want it, but for the most part, everybody wants it. Like TCU didn't get their butts kicked by Georgia in the national championship game because Georgia wanted it more. Like that's not a thing, right? So in the end, there's a lot of other like pieces that like that's why there's analysis and why you do it and why it's just not as simple as being like, guys, they just didn't come to play. Like, because I think there's very few times, and I know this gets brought up a lot, but it's very much like a fan thing to be like, these guys didn't come to play today. And I mean, sometimes that's the case, but I don't think that was the case in all those games where it's like, man, they couldn't get up for these road games. I just think it was like the matchups were not great for them. And even if you look at like that NC State game too, and what another thing with these apps, all the teams that they struggled, they're like, man, the offense can't go on in this game. It's like, well, these other team had like NFL corners and Notre Dame didn't have receivers who could get open.
Yeah.
And they played them a certain way and they couldn't do anything about it. So, I mean, if I was going to say anything with this, if I was going to point to something prior to the season, I'm going to look at the offensive tackles and I'm going to look at, where they are because they're new offensive tackles and we don't know how good they're going to be. And guess what? They're playing like the top teams they're playing. The 3 of the 4 top teams they're playing have legit dudes at edge rusher.
Mm-hmm. So
you got to block those guys. And if they struggle in those games, people are going to be like, man, this is that, whatever. And it's like a lot of the times the real story is just going to be like, their Jimmies were better than Notre Dame's Joes at this spot. And that's why they struggled for this. And they didn't do enough there. So maybe, Mike, in that sense, bringing it back to Drew's question, maybe that's something that Mike Denbrock can help with because he can help alleviate some of that stuff because it's like, well, we're going to do this instead to deal with it, but I think a lot of it is like, I think when it comes down to it, a lot of it is players and what they can do and what they're capable of and not motivation.
Yeah. I think the Denbrock piece plays a part in that. It'll play a part in every game, not necessarily the road, right? But just being able to solve problems and being able to be like, okay, they're taking this away. We need to go with this. Or we need to be setting this up, or we need to be emphasizing this straight away so that we don't struggle early. Like it could be something like that, but that's not a road thing. It's an every game thing, right? That's why you want a good OC, right? That's why you pay them all that money.